everyone, and welcome back for another devlog video. A quick recap on my last devlog episode, I created an enemy AI that is capable of attacking the player as well as path finding. You should totally check it out, there will be a link in the description below. So for today's video, I will be creating a camera controller for my game that will follow the player and for changing its position when there's an enemy nearby. But before that, I want to add a feature that is very common in top-down shooter games, which is the player can get immune to attack or do not take any damage whenever it gets hit by the enemy. I quickly implemented this, and it's not that hard to implement actually. I just keep track whenever the player gets attacked, and the player will no longer take damage for a certain amount of time. So here it is in action. As you can see, the player can no longer take damage even if I bump up the enemy's attack speed. So that's done. The reason I'm adding this is because this will help whenever the enemy surrounds the player and or gets stuck or something like that, so the player will have time to think on what to do next and don't die that easily. But for now, there is no visual feedback whenever the player is immune to attacks. So to fix this issue, I gotta go with the traditional blinking character when it's get attacked by enemy. I easily implemented this using animations because it's just easy to use and easy to do. By the way, this is the first thing I did. I did not totally spend 1 hour figuring out how to implement this in code. God loves scripting. Anyway, now it's working. It's working properly. Here it is in gameplay. The player is now changing its alpha channel back and forth. So, that's done. So now it's time for the camera controller, because as you can see, the player can just get in and out of the camera view, which is not looking great and bad for the gameplay. I implemented this by just finding the player object in the scene and setting the camera's position to that player position. And voila! Now it's working, but it's kinda looking kinda stiff or something, so I want to smooth it out a little bit to add more dynamic feel to it. And yep, now the camera is kinda slow, so I'm gonna fix that real quick. Nope, still nothing. Okay, how about this? Yep, now the camera is following the player smoothly and correctly. Now that's done, I wanted to add a little feature that I like, which is changing the camera's position whenever there's an enemy nearby. I achieved this by just scanning a certain distance around the player, and whenever there's an enemy, it will be targeted by the camera. And I found a little bug when I was playing around with this function that I made, which is that my player's targeting the wrong target. I wanted to target the closest enemy, but in this case, it's targeting the farthest enemy. Woo, scripting. I quickly fixed my mistake in the code, and now this is the new and improved updating the target functionality. I really don't know if this is the good idea or it's the right way to do it, but it's working, and I love it. Okay, wait. I have to make sure that this is working properly. So I added 2 more enemies in the scene to be perfectly sure, and voila! As you can see, it's now working properly. It's targeting the closest enemy. This is the camera shifting target in action. As you can see, it's working properly. Moving on with the camera script, I wanted to add more functionality with my player script. I want to add dashing mechanic, because as I was saying earlier, when the enemy surrounds the player, it's hard to escape. So I quickly implemented my dashing mechanics. By the way, there's a lot of ways to do this, but I just go with the easiest way by changing the speed of the player for a certain amount of time, and changing it back to normal speed for a certain amount of time. And I also added a cooldown for my dash every time the player dashes. This way, the player just cannot spam the dash mechanics that I created. And there it is. The player can now dash and so on. But there's no other function for my dashing mechanic, except the player will just gain speed for a certain amount of time, and I don't like it. It's kinda blunt. So I added more functionality to it, like damaging an enemy when you dash near to it. And I want to add a small amount of force that pushes enemy backwards when they are close to the player. I can easily do this when I'm developing this game in 3D by the help of the built-in add explosion functionality. But unfortunately, my game is in 2D and I really don't know how am I going around this. So, a quick visit to my good old friend, Unity Answers, and I come across with this script by Swami. If you want to check it out, there will be a link in the description below. The only thing that is left for me to do now is to figure it out how to implement this in my game, and for many hours and God knows how long I'm stuck with this to get working, I finally got it right. A little tweak here and there, we have a working dashing mechanics with the damage functionality, and also the player can push around enemies with a certain radius. So that's cool. So I'm thinking this will be the end of this video. I hope you like it. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.